The story begins during World War II. A Japanese businessman named Saito was being deported back to Japan with other prisoners, where they would be forced to work as slaves. Saito was kept alone, away from everyone. Soon, 2 guards took him to the ship's commander. The commander looked at him with hatred and said, "Betraying your country is unforgivable, but death would be too easy for you. It's not enough for the crime you've committed." Just then, some other soldiers brought in another prisoner named Bronson. Bronson was from Britain and harbored a deep hatred for the Japanese. The commander then formulated his plan. These two would be chained together for the rest of their lives. The soldiers stepped forward and handcuffed their legs. Bronson pleaded, "Kill me. Just don't tie me to a Japanese." But no one listened. It seemed as if this was their fate. But then the ship was attacked by enemies and all the prisoners aboard mutinied. Bronson and Saito seized the opportunity, escaping and fighting alongside the soldiers. A submarine approached the ship and fired a missile at it. Only the officer and the 2 prisoners remained in the cabin. The commanding officer drew his gun, intending to kill them both. But Bronson quickly grabbed Saito, and both jumped into the sea before the entire ship exploded. A few hours later, Bronson swam with Saito to a deserted island. Upon reaching land, he collapsed unconscious. The next day, Saito woke up thinking it was all a bad dream. But when he saw the chains on his legs, he was confronted with the truth. He tried to wake Bronson, but he remained unconscious. A soldier's body was also found nearby, washed ashore, and Saito took his gun. He was now contemplating shooting Bronson and freeing himself, but Bronson suddenly got up and attacked him. A terrifying scream rang out from the water. Bronson tried to push Saito into the sea, but Saito's injured leg began to bleed, and the unknown creature, sensing it, began to approach them. The creature jerked Bronson away and attacked him. Sharp claws and lightning-fast speed. Saito immediately raised his gun and aimed it at Bronson first, but instead of hitting Bronson, it shot the creature. The creature retreated and disappeared into the water. Bronson was now wounded. Both realized that something far more dangerous than their mutual rivalry lurked on the island. They made a pact to survive. A little distance from the beach, Bronson asked what the creature was, but they spoke a different language, so Saito only pretended to understand. However, his face clearly showed that he knew what he had just seen. Saito remained silent for a while, wondering how to escape. But finally, in despair, he realized he was certain to die. But Bronson immediately stopped him, asking, "Are you crazy?" He then took out the last bullet from his gun and gave it to Saito, saying, "We must both fight the creature that's chasing them." They found some belongings that had washed up on the beach. Bronson found a pack of cigarettes and offered it to Saito, but Saito refused to take it. His eyes were filled with sadness. As Bronson searched for some useful items, he found the body of a young soldier, his own comrade. He broke down in tears and said he was just a young boy. He had his whole life ahead of him. He would have been alive if the Japanese hadn't started this war. Saito, though he couldn't understand a single word, could fully feel his pain. He offered Bronson water. Bronson drank the water, and together, they began gathering more supplies for the night. When darkness fell, they set up camp together. Bronson tried to put on his shoes, but the chains were causing him pain, and he couldn't put them on. Saito then realized he had taken the large shoes from a dead soldier and gave them to Bronson. However, Bronson flatly refused to wear them, refusing to touch anything Japanese. Saito caught some crabs and fed them to his new companion, Bronson, who had been hungry for days and hesitated at first. But then he took the food, but the crab fell from his hands into the mud. Seeing this, Saito gave him his own crab. Bronson initially refused, but then Saito insisted and placed it before him. Bronson was very hungry. As soon as he tasted the crab, he loved it. Gradually, the two began to open up to each other. Then Bronson introduced himself more clearly, and Saito began to understand a little. He even learned to say his name. Then he said, "My name is Saito." Bronson asked, "What should we do with these chains?" But Saito remained silent. Later, Bronson fashioned a weapon to cut the chain. He tried, but to no avail. Then Saito pointed his foot at a weak spot in the chain and muttered something in Japanese. Bronson didn't understand, but seeing the gesture, he wondered if he should try. Saito encouraged him, and with 2 blows, the chain came loose. Now it was Bronson's turn. Saito asked for his weapon, which made Bronson a little nervous, but he still trusted him. When Saito started hitting the chain near Bronson's leg, Bronson said, "Brother, I won't be seen." "I'm covering my eyes." Saito laughed. Then with a single blow, he freed Bronson. Bronson jumped with joy that his leg wasn't lost, and they both celebrated. But their voices caught the attention of something lurking in the darkness. Saito sensed something approaching them, and both became alert. But the creature soon disappeared. They both grabbed their weapons and went looking for evidence. Saito found some tracks in the sand and began a brief investigation. But then a sound caught his attention. When they turned around, they realized it was 2 Japanese soldiers with a prisoner. Bronson suspected Saito would abandon him now. But Saito, to show Bronson that he could trust him, handed him his weapon and told him to quickly hide. Saito stopped there and and watched the food simmer. Just then, a soldier smelled something and went to investigate. He thought someone was sleeping in the camp. Saito came forward and told them not to fire. While Bronson watched from a distance, the soldiers, unaware that Saito had been declared a traitor, began to trust him. But Bronson didn't know that the real danger was right behind him. In the camp, Saito asked his old comrades if anyone was left. The men replied that only they were left because they were wearing life jackets. Everyone else had drowned. Bronson realized a little too late that the sea creature was after him. He was so terrified that he didn't know what to do, and finally he closed his eyes. But when he opened them again, the terrifying creature had disappeared. Now the Japanese soldiers were questioning Saito, asking if he was sure no one else was there. Saito claimed he was alone, but the soldiers became suspicious because they had found clues to Bronson's presence. One soldier grabbed his sword and said that before the ship sank, a rumor had spread that a traitor and an enemy had been chained together. When they removed the cloth from Saito's leg, they realized Saito was a traitor. Another soldier asked him where the deserter was. Saito said he was dead and pointed to a grave where they had buried Bronson's friend. A Japanese soldier declared that Saito was not only a traitor, but also a liar, and threatened to slit his throat if he didn't tell the truth. Just then, a terrifying roar echoed across the island, stopping everyone. Another prisoner screamed in fear. Whatever this creature was, it wasn't human. He fell to his knees and began praying for help. A soldier told the youngest soldier to go and see what the sound was. He rushed to Bronson. Bronson stepped on a dry tree branch and a sound came. The soldier started toward it, but then he heard the creature's roar and ran away. The soldier made his way through the jungle to the cave entrance and entered, unaware that the creature was hiding among the stones of the gate. Meanwhile, Bronson tried to save his friend. Inside the cave, the creature emerged from behind the soldier. The soldier turned and attacked it with his sword, but the creature instantly broke the soldier's arm. Its scream echoed across the island. Another soldier thought it was Saito, so he went to kill it, but Bronson stabbed him and killed him. Just as Bronson was about to shoot, the creature threw the soldier's head at them, screaming terrifyingly. Both ran for cover. The creature reached the wounded soldier and completely destroyed him. The other prisoner also ran, but the creature pounced on him and killed him too. Bronson and Saito watched from a distance. They decided they should leave, but the creature spotted them and gave chase. They both ran into the forest, and Saito cleared the path with a machete. Bronson said, "I have a plan, and we should both stop." But Saito, not understanding his language, continued on. Bronson stumbled back, and the creature immediately reached him. Panicked, Bronson fired but missed. His last bullet was wasted. The creature grabbed Bronson's throat and raised its claw to strike him, but Saito suddenly came back and attacked the creature, freeing Bronson. They both seized the opportunity to flee, but slipped down a slope, leaving both of them severely injured. The next day, they were both badly injured. When Saito opened his eyes, he saw a sharp object embedded in his chest. With intense pain, he got up and removed the sharp object. At that moment, Bronson was lying on a rotten piece of wood hanging over the edge of a waterfall. When he tried to move, the wood began to sway, and despite his balance, Bronson slipped. He hit a rock below and fell into the water. Underwater, he began to remember the first attack and, with great difficulty, managed to swim to shore. Saito found the dead soldier's katana on the other side. Now the two had separated and were walking along the river. From the top of the waterfall, the creature gave a heart-wrenching speech. A scream echoed through the jungle. They both heard it. They were startled, and Saito, who was drinking from the river, stopped and went in search of his friend. Bronson continued climbing alone until he reached a large waterfall that blocked his path. He still decided to continue. Evening began to fall, and they were still separated. Saito was now trying to get out of the riverbank, but despite his best efforts, he couldn't find Bronson. Meanwhile, Bronson reached the waterfall and decided to rest for a while, but he heard some noises nearby. Saito was still wandering in the jungle. The noises alerted him. Bronson finally emerged from the deep and sat down on the bank, but immediately he felt a presence beside him. When he turned to look, there was a large crocodile. Seeing no prey, he lay still motionless. The crocodile just stared and then returned to the water. The prawn was still frightened. He quietly got up and started walking. He was about to reach the top of the waterfall when he slipped, and just then he saw the creature, which was now applying something to the wound Saito had inflicted. Bronson realized that this creature was no fool. It could think and understand. It could heal its wounds. Now, he tried to figure out how to tell Saito this, but he accidentally made a noise and then tried to sneak away. He watched from hiding as the creature walked along the riverbank. Suddenly, the same crocodile attacked the creature and dragged it away. The water immediately turned red, and for a moment, the crocodile gasped for breath. Then the creature emerged from the water and ripped it in two. Bronson was even more terrified by this. The creature let out another shrill scream that reached Saito on the other side. Bronson immediately ran. Saito was still searching for it in the forest. After some time, Saito suddenly saw something strange. When he got closer, he saw a corpse tied to a tree. He was terrified and stumbled into a pit. Inside the pit, Saito found the head of another similar creature. He started at the scene for a while, then realized it was dead. With renewed hope, he decided to leave and began searching for useful items near the corpse. He found a gun in the corpse's hand, and seeing the bullet casing on the ground, he realized this man must have killed the creature. Saito then picked up the gun. Now armed with a katana and a pistol, he decided to hunt the creature. On the way, he found the wreckage of a broken plane and waded into the water to reach it. When he went inside the half-submerged plane, he saw something. Meanwhile, Bronson also found another piece of the plane and reached the same plane. Before entering the plane, he fashioned a makeshift weapon from some scrap metal. He then went inside the plane and found a flare gun, a lighter, cigarettes, and other items. But something caught his eye. While trying to grab it, he slipped and noticed something stuck to the wing. When he looked closer, he realized it was a bomb. Seeing this bomb, he got an idea. Bronson rested for a while and lit a cigarette. While smoking, he heard footsteps. When he turned around, Saito was standing there. Bronson asked him why he was shivering and offered him a cigarette. Saito refused, saying he had something important to show him. Bronson didn't understand, so Saito used his lighter to try to explain. They went to a cave together, and Saito pointed to a strange object. They saw a female hatchling hatching another egg. Bronson slowly approached, but Saito warned him, "It's a female. Stay away from it. She becomes extremely dangerous to protect her home and child." But Bronson said he wouldn't leave without killing her. Saito tried to convince him that if we kill one female, the other creatures will become even more dangerous. They will destroy us at any cost. But Bronson said, either they live or we will. He had an idea and asked Saito to come with him. Then Bronson showed Saito the bomb he had found on the plane and asked him to help him take it to the monster's house. Together, they carried the bomb with great difficulty. Once there, they noticed the trigger was bent. Bronson tried to fix it, but Saito said they should get out of there as quickly as possible. It could explode at any moment. Meanwhile, the female was returning to her cave. Bronson said there was an emergency hammer on the plane. It could be useful, but one of them would have to stay there to activate the bomb. Saito said sadly, "It's because of me that we're here," and he agreed to stay. But then they heard the female roar. They both decided to go outside. Bronson lit a flare so he could see in the dark. While Saito stood guard, Bronson tried to pull out the hammer, but the hammer was stuck, and it was taking a lot of effort to pull it out. Just then, a monster appeared before Saito, and Saito immediately agreed to fight. A fierce battle ensued, and the creature was very powerful. He was fighting safely and sensibly. Bronson managed to remove the hammer from the plane. Saito bravely confronted the monster and pushed it closer to the plane. Bronson got the chance to strike it several times with the hammer. They both engaged the creature in a fight, pinning it to a corner for a while. But when they looked up at the sky, they saw the fire slowly dying down. Then, when they looked ahead, the tongue had disappeared. Then they both hurried back to the cave to finish the job. Saito once again stood guard while Bronson tried to fix the latch on the bomb. As soon as Bronson fixed the latch, the creature attacked from behind, but Saito immediately stabbed the creature in the chest. Just as he was preparing to cut off its head, the creature threw him against the wall and then charged back at Bronson, injuring him with a powerful attack. Saito mustered his courage, picked up his weapon, and with a single blow shot the creature in the eye. The monster let go of Bronson. Saito fired again but missed. So he changed his target and shot the creature's egg. The egg exploded, and one of the female's babies fell to the ground, sending the female into a rage. Saito ran to help his friend, but Bronson was badly injured. Bronson gave Saito all his belongings and told him to get out quickly. Saito was in pain as the female sat cradling her baby in his arms, but he was forced to leave his friend and run from the cave. Then the female came to Bronson. Bronson immediately activated the bomb. He immediately began a countdown, but when it reached 3, the bomb failed to explode. Then he remembered his friend Saito's words. He activated the bomb as Saito had instructed, and a massive explosion occurred, which Saito witnessed from a distance. Saito was deeply saddened by the loss of his friend. Then he heard the same terrifying scream and he realized the creature was still alive. He began running through the bushes, the female pursuing him through the forest. Saito reached the seashore and fell to his knees in despair, but then he remembered his friend's sacrifice and, enraged, decided to fight. As soon as the female reached the seashore and saw someone kneeling before her, she pounced on him in a single blow, but it was a trap. Saito rose from the sand and stood before the creature. He attacked the creature but was wounded himself. He refused to give up and stood up again to face the creature. He challenged the female, saying, "I have killed your child. Come!" As soon as Saito struck, Saito ripped open its stomach and the female fell to the ground. He went to the weakened female, leaned over her, and drew his sword. But instead of killing him, he thrust the sword into the ground near him and took a few steps back to pick up a flare gun. Just then, some more noises came from the forest and he started walking towards the seashore. There he tried to light a fire, but the flare was broken. Now his last hope was lost. Exhausted and defeated, Saito collapsed on the sand, unconscious. A few hours later, Saito woke up on an American ship where an officer was interrogating him. A Japanese translator was also with him. The officer asked if Bronson had helped him, but Saito remained silent. Then, the officer told the translator to ask him what he had done. What was his crime? Saito replied, "I killed my own commander because he was needlessly pushing all my comrades to death." The officer began talking about Bronson again, and Saito remembered the moments he had shared with him. By the end, they had become true friends. The officer asked if anyone else was alive on that island. Saito said that no one was left there. Then he looked out the ship's window as their ship moved away from shore. Then he realized that many other creatures were alive there, and they would rule the island. If you liked the video, please like it and subscribe to the channel.